Hello friends, Glage back with another Punishing Grey Raven video today, and I am back from my event work and mostly recovered. 12-hour days on concrete floors when you're in your 40s is certainly a choice I've made with my life, but mostly feeling refreshed since then, and I'm ready to get back to talking about PGR and making some guides for you all. But today I want to talk about a mode that is somewhat infamous in PGR, but for a lot of you who have just started with the Global Sync and are preparing for the Devil May Cry collab, this is going to be your first shot at taking on Babel Tower. So, Babel Tower is one of PGR's original quote-unquote in-game modes. This is where a lot of the original toughest challenges in this game came from, and it's a very unique mode that can be somewhat intimidating to jump into for the first time. So I want to break down how it works and how to best prepare you if you're a newer player for how to make sure you get the maximum amount of rewards out of this mode. Now, if you're a veteran player, you're already very familiar with how Babel works. You're probably going to be going for either very high level clears or max level clears. This guide's not going to be particularly for y'all, but you also don't need my help if you are planning on going for a max level clear of Babel Tower. You probably know the score and probably have a good idea of how to approach it. But for those of you who are new, Babel Tower is a mode that pits us with the challenge of fighting 3 different bosses, all with unique mechanics, environmental effects, and modifiers that we are allowed to trigger to make the fight either more difficult or less difficult depending on how hard you want it to be. So, the good news about this is that even though Babel Tower can be somewhat intimidating and there's a lot to it, if you are a new player and your only goal is getting rewards so you can get stuff to put towards your Devil May Cry funds, getting that is not going to be very hard. You only need to get to Babel level 120, and I'm sure that sounds high if you're new to this mode. This will not be difficult for you to do even if you are a newer player, and I'm going to show you the best ways to go about that. But let's talk the basics of how Babel Tower works. So, we are given 3 different bosses to tackle, and each boss can be fought with 3 separate teams. So once you go in and select your team, you can go down. Each boss will have unique environmental intel that adds wrinkles and modifiers to the fight. Highly recommend paying attention to these. A lot of times the environmental aspects are what allow you to deal with some of the more challenging parts of each of these fights. So, Babel Tower fights are often based off existing bosses we've either fought in the story, pain cage bosses, alternative interpretation bosses, but sometimes we get completely new fights for this mode. In this case, this particular version of Babel actually pits us against Lee Hyperreal, our second-generation fire attacker, the character that Lucia Pyro-Oath has replaced. So, obviously, that's a completely different wrinkle than what we're used to. We don't go around fighting Lee very often for obvious reasons, but how this works is you'll go in, you can select a team, and as you can see here, we have a bunch of difficulty selections that you can go through. So there's the base difficulty levels. How these work is the higher you go, the more the base stats, damage, all that stuff of the boss you're fighting is going to change. So if you go all the way up to the overclock status, as you can see, it tells you what it's recommending for your battle power for each character, and the higher you go, the stronger the boss is going to be. Pretty simple. For each of these modifiers that you pick, as you can see over here, your strategic target rises up, and all you have to do is clear a fight, and you will gain that many quote-unquote strategic levels in Babel Tower. These are additive, so if you were to go into each fight and just do absolute base difficulty with no other modifiers whatsoever, and you were to complete it with 3 separate teams, you would gain a total of 30 levels off the first boss in Babel Tower. That would put you 1/4 of the way to getting all the rewards out of the front side. But as you can see, these can go pretty high, and the various changes for each modifier can be pretty drastic. So we have here, like, enemy attack increases by a whole lot. They can become immune to death. These get pretty gnarly. but you don't need to worry about sitting here clicking all of these and trying to get the absolute maximum out of this. If you want to, you can knock out almost the entirety of those 120 levels in a single fight if you want to go all the way balls to the walls and set everything to max difficulty. If you're a newer player, I highly recommend not doing that, because these bosses set on maximum modifiers can be both very tanky and have some very unique mechanics and effects that make them quite challenging to get through. So, in general, the plan is going to be to kind of play around with these modifiers, see what you can and can't clear with a given team, and to basically go through and figure out how you're getting to that level of 120 to clear out all the rewards. There's other little wrinkles in these fights, so these will kind of tell you what each modifier does and how you can look to pick and mix and match for what makes sense for how you feel comfortable tackling each fight. But once you set all your difficulty stuff, let's just pick a couple and say we're going to try for strategic level 55. That almost gets us halfway to all the rewards. When you go in and pick a team, you will be able to select from the entirety of your roster to make a team. There are no real team building limits. You can deploy an actual meta team if you have it available. But the important thing to note is if you clear a fight, once you clear the fight and lock in your score, those characters are locked in for the entirety of that side of Babel Tower. So not only can you not use them in your other two slots in this boss fight, you will not be able to use that character anywhere in Lee's boss fight or anywhere in Cradle's boss fight once it unlocks in a day or so. So, kind of similar to how Phantom Pain Cage works, once you've used a character, they are used. If you try to add them to another team, your score that you lock in with that character on a different team will be nullified and you'll have to redo it. So, Babel Tower is very much a test of your account's flexibility and how well built out it is, how many characters you have available, as opposed to it being all about raw skill and understanding the gameplay. Now, you can overcome these challenges by being very good at the game and being very good at piloting your characters. But again, if you're a newer player, you're simply going to have less options than most people would have to tackle this. There are some good news for you there on that front, though. So if we go in and start team building, one, not only can you pick all of your own characters, but every Babel Tower, we are given access to some trial characters as well. So as you can see, this time we've been given the Fire Team as a set of trial characters. These characters are available for you to use however you want. If you want to deploy the entire Fire Team of trial characters to challenge one of these fights, you absolutely can do that. And if you understand how to play all of these characters, you can probably attempt to go max level on a single fight against one of the bosses and knock out most of your levels that way just fine. There's some nice quality of life. In the past, choosing the trial characters limited how high you could ratchet up the difficulty on these modifiers. As far as I can tell, in this version of Babel Tower, that is now gone. So feel free to mix and match and use the trial characters however you would like. Do note that as far as I remember, using a trial character will lock that character out of being used in another fight. So you can't say use the trial version of Pyro Oath and then go up and deploy your own Pyro Oath in a different section of Babel. That won't work because it'll consider it the same character. It'll nullify your first score. So just keep that in mind. You should only be using the trial characters if you either A, do not have that character unlocked, or B, the trial character is better invested than your version of the character. So all the trial characters in this one come at double S and with their signature weapons. So kind of base that compared to your own on whether or not you want to use the trial characters or not. But as you can see down here, when we build a team, if you meet these requirements, you will get these support points. How the support point works, so I'm just going to pick my fire team to kind of set things up. As you can see, I now meet the validations here to activate the support points. So with the support points, you now get the option of selecting these support options. So Prelude to Judgment, as you can see, if you stagger or break the boss, their super armor being broken is going to give you extra signature energy when you're on the field. And the secondary one, the switch cooldown, is lowered by having this active. These are effectively free to use. These do not lower your score. They do not detract from any of the levels you have set on the difficulty modifiers. So if you are a newer player and you're not just solely trying to do a raw challenge mode, go ahead and if you can activate these, absolutely activate them. Now, some of the team building requirements in the later fights tend to get a little bit more finicky and demanding, so there may be fights where you may not have enough support points to activate every support option in the field. In fact, in the past, we've actually had situations where you can only get enough support points to activate one or two of these if there are three available. But if you can activate these, there's no reason not to. It's just free buffs to your team for trying to clear the mode. So, sport details down here will give you a breakdown of how everything works too. But basically, if you can meet the requirements for the team building, that lets you unlock these. These are very useful. Also of note is that in this mode, all characters are valid for use. This includes the uniframes. If you are a newer player, it is very highly unlikely you have any uniframes built. Uniframes are an outdated form of PGR characters that were very present in the first 2-3 years of the game. You've probably done the Uniframe tutorial if you've been going through all the tutorials and doing all the beginner missions and stuff. But if you happen to have Kamu, for example, who every player gets for free eventually by going through the tutorials and game modes, uniframes don't suffer any penalty anymore for being deployed. For the longest time, if a uniframe was deployed in non-uniframe combat, they had a massive damage penalty tacked on them. That is no longer the case. So if you need an extra dark attacker or just another body to help boost and support the team, and you have Camu already decently leveled up and happen to have bought his memories and stuff, feel free to throw him in a team and use him. Same goes for any other uniframes you might have pulled. If you are a somewhat like a player who played early and maybe is coming back for the Devil May Cry collab, you might have some uniframes built if you played in the first couple years of the game and then took some time off. So these are perfectly fair game to add to your teams. In the past, we've actually had bosses that use the uniframe mechanics in Babel Tower, so just keep that in mind. Might be handy to use. But in general, if you don't have any uniframes built or you've never used them, you don't really need to worry about it. We basically do not get uniframe content anymore outside of the weekly guild node where you use uniframes, and that always comes with trial characters, so most people don't worry about it too much. But in general, it's not super hard to reach the level to get all the basic rewards out of this. If you get to strategic level 120 and you've cleared all the rewards and you want to try to do the challenges, as you can see, you get a unique collectible for reaching 300, 450, and 600. The other unique thing is that these collectibles actually are one of the few things that kind of just exist for pure and sole bragging rights, if that makes sense. If you go into your collectibles and you go down, and I'll try and find one of my Babel Tower ones here. Let's see. We should have a couple that are super low. I think this is the first one I ever did was shift. As you can see, I got to about 480, which is nowhere near max level. But what happens is, as you unlock the collectibles, it will put your total Babel Tower level as the number on the front of it. So if you can fully max out an entire Babel Tower run, you will get the maximum number on that. Again, there's a good example. The Ruined Shade Babel Tower in 1905 was max level on that, so it shows that. You have no reason to do this except for your own personal challenges and bragging rights. There's nothing special you get for it other than the collectible, and collectibles are by their very nature vanity pieces, so don't feel super compelled to do that. But if it's something you're interested in, you do get a neat little badge of honor for going high level on these. But just note that every single one of these you clear counts towards your level. So if you manage to do, let's say you put the difficulty to 40 on Ballard and then you clear with one team, you can do that 2 more times. That will give you a total of 120 levels. Every team you clear this with, the levels stack. It's not just you can get this many levels per boss. So in Ballard's case, if you were to try and max everything out, take the difficulty as high as it can go, the max you can go on Ballard in a single fight is 110. If you manage to clear this with all 3 teams, you would get 330 total levels locked in. So getting to that 120 is not super challenging. You can effectively either take one really, really well-built team and try and get as many levels as you want in a single fight, or maybe get a decent chunk of them. Let's say maybe you have your own fire team that's decently well built. You can probably go somewhere in the nature of like 75 or halfway there and clear this fight, that only leaves you with 45 more levels to get. That's going to be pretty trivial with the rest of the teams available. Also of note, if you are really strapped for characters, you are not required to deploy a full team. As you can see down here, to get the support conditions, you only need one unit and to cover 4,000 BP, and that's any character that's been evolved to S rank and has a memory set equipped, more or less. So you can shortchange a team if you absolutely have to. There are times where I have definitely soloed with just an amplifier in the past just to save on team building, stuff like that. But if all you care about is getting some extra resources for Devil May Cry, your basic goal with this should be nothing more than to get to level 120 and call it good. Now, if you finish Babel Tower and get a decent amount going, there is a B side, a secondary side. This is basically purely for raw challenge. The only rewards you get are some memory chips and very basic leveling materials. This is all stuff we get literally every day for just doing the basic shop clear, the event shop and all that. So don't feel like you need to do the back end of this. You absolutely can if you're really enjoying the mode and you want to challenge yourself. Do note that on the backside, all of your lock-ins reset. So none of the characters you used on the front side are locked out for the back side. You get to put them on one team just like you did on the front side. But for the newer players and for who this guide is targeting, this front side is really all you care about. And again, all you have to do is get to strategic level 120 and you get all the vouchers, all the hyper tomb materials, and some black cards for your troubles. So, again, Babel Tower can be incredibly challenging, incredibly intimidating if you want to go for, big level max clears. But if you are just here trying to get DMC stuff, don't worry about that. It's not worth your time. And again, if you don't have a well-built account, you need a lot of characters to go for max level on this. You effectively are going to need 9 full teams that can at least somewhat function as a unit and stay alive through the boss mechanics, the difficulty, and the boosted stats they get for bumping the levels up. But if you utilize the trial characters and whoever you yourself have built, getting to level 120 is going to be pretty trivial. So if you have any questions or you want some ideas on how to best tackle getting to 120 if this is your first time in Babel Tower, feel free to leave me some comments down there. I'll try and help you with team building and ideas to help you get there. But even if you just use the trial characters and then mix and match your own, getting 6 teams deployed and just keeping the difficulty real low and getting your clears up to 120 won't take you much. But if you are interested in seeing a full max level, max difficulty, torture your stealth style clear, I am planning on doing the entirety of Babel Tower next week, 1 week from today of this recording. So on Wednesday, June 4th, I am planning on streaming this on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Clage. So I'm going to go through the entirety of the front and back side and go for a max level clear. If you want to drop by and check that out, feel free. If you want to drop by and ask PGR questions, I'm happy to field those while I'm streaming. So I haven't actually streamed PGR on my Twitch in a good while, so I think this would be a good excuse to do it and kind of catch up with people and do one of the modes that I find really fun. This mode, if you're going for max level clears and trying to take it as high as you can go, is kind of a neat combination of stuff like old Arknight's Contingency Contract, if you ever played that mode in the first 4-ish years of that game's lifespan, while also kind of being similar to like an MMO raid, like an FF14 boss fight. You get a lot more mechanics and have to be more aware of the stages and how the bosses work. Even if you have really well-built triple S rank characters, some of these bosses can still murk you if you're not adhering to the mechanics and paying attention to how you get the most out of these fights. So if you want to see me torture myself going for max level, feel free to drop by that stream. And yeah, I think that's going to do it for this one. If you have questions, if you're feeling a little intimidated or this seems overwhelming, don't be. Again, getting all the rewards out of this isn't super hard, especially with 3 good trial characters at our disposal. You can either deploy them as one solid unit that will get you most of the way there by themselves, or you can split them up and bolster other teams to try and clear out fights at, multiple fights at lower difficulties. So I will have more stuff soon. I was planning on the Ultima Slash guide. However, I'm just not very happy with my consistency, especially with how Han Ying's part of that rotation works. So I'm still tweaking that a little bit. There's also the aspect that Virgil is going to be part of that team, so I'm probably going to have to do an updated version anyway. So bear with me if you've been waiting on the Ultima Slash guide. I don't want to half-ass it and put out something that I don't feel does a good job showing how that team works. But it's kind of been a bit frustrating to go through because Bianca's part of it is really, really brain dead simple, and Han Ying's is just mind-bogglingly inconsistent to get what I want out of it. So, but I will have plenty of other videos upcoming very soon. We shouldn't be too far out from being able to preview the next patch, which should almost certainly be our final triple patch in the global sync. And of course, once I get my test server access, I'll be going through and showing you stuff on that and working on guides for our 2 S ranks that we'll be getting in that patch as well. So, as always, thank you again for the patience while I was out of town doing work. Definitely appreciate that. And if you want to do all the YouTube junk, like, comment, subscribe, it's always appreciated, never necessary. But that's going to do it for this one. Like I said, Wednesday, June 4th, if you want to stop by my Twitch stream, I will be streaming Babel Tower and answering any PGR-related questions people have to help prep for what's coming up. We're not far from DMC. I know that's what most of you are here for. It's probably about 2.5 months away. We are really not far, so plenty of that content coming up in the near future as well. But I've talked too long on Babel Tower for one day. I'm going to get out of here and let you all get on with your day. So as always, thank you for all the support and feedback. Thank you for 7,000 subs. Totally forgot to mention that. Did not expect to hit that number really at all when I started doing PGR content. So that's kind of wild. And if we keep going at the rate we're going, I don't know, maybe I can sneak up towards that 10K number by the end of the year. That would be wild and amazing if it gets there. But either way, the growth and interest in PGR has made me very, very happy. And even if it slows to a crawl after this, I'm still incredibly overjoyed with how much support and response these videos have got. So thank you again for all that. But until the next one, y'all take care, and I'll see you soon. Peace for now.